Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market, that is the crypto market, the NFT market, the Solana breakpoint market today, and how to make or lose a lot of money or some money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today, we have the Bank of Japan keeping the interest rate unchanged at 0.25%, 25 bips, sending a positive signal towards the market. We have concerns as a second piece of news about the Tether dominance reaching 70% of the entire stablecoin market cap. And last but not least, we have Yuga Labs relaunching Dookey Dash, very successfully climbing into the top 10 in the App Store. And we've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs, plus some discussion on Kodama's sports car proposal for ApecoinDAO that passed successfully. Kodama's joining us live today to discuss that, so stay tuned for that as well. Today we have Funky and Kodama both joining me in the co-host roles today, and we're ready to get into it. But however, before we do that, just a reminder, friends, nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is very risky and we don't know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment if you have any. With that out of the way, Funky, thank you for joining us on such a short notice. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm great, especially with a little laughter to start the day. Just excited to be here as always. Thank you for the invitation, Legendary. And, as I like to say, at 49 years old, especially, just blessed with another day, really excited about life and what it holds. And of course, a pumping market, which is never a bad thing.
Love it. Also love the subtitle under Funky for those people watching us on video today, saying US political correspondent, which you certainly are for the modern market, and resident Bitcoin maxi. Kodama, welcome to the stage as well. Thank you so much, my friend, for joining us today to discuss all things that we have planned for the show, but especially your successful proposal. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. As Funky already said, you always feel good when the market is pumping. For Funky, with the Bitcoin t-shirt, I guess the 2% are pretty sexy as well, but especially for me, I would never consider myself a maxi, but if I have to choose, I choose Ethereum. And like the 5.2% today are delicious, a delicious treat to wake up to. So I'm feeling good. Obviously, also one day after my AIP got approved, I'm in vibrant discussions with a lot of people from the community. I'm having a good time. The sun is shining in Vienna, as you know. So yeah, life's good.
Sounds amazing. I'm excited to get into the discussion. And I feel like I'm the bottom signal for ETH. Like yesterday I had this post up real quick saying that I'm a bit worried about ETH and about the L2s. I've been in ETH like for 8 years, but kind of not feel really comfortable right now. I deleted the post like after 10 minutes because I didn't want to cause any panic. And obviously today we're up 5%. So I'm definitely the bottom signal when it comes to that. But we will get into that when we will discuss the first headline and more on the market. So because we have a lot to discuss, let's get into it, and let's start as per usual with the price action. And we'll share everything on screen for those watching us on video or joining us on YouTube. We do not have the snapshot today, but the show is gonna proceed. As per usual. So with that being said, it is a green day. We said it before. BTC, as Kodama said perfectly, it's up 22% over the last 24 hours. Touched 64K, now down to 63.6K. ETH is up way more than that. ETH is up 5%, 2.55K. And Solana is absolutely ripping. Solana is up 13% at 151 US dollars. In terms of the main headlines today, we have exactly the market discussion. We have the focus on the Bank of Japan and their interest rates and why this is relevant for the rest of the market, as well as the move in the majors, but also more particularly the massive move in Solana, as well as Solana memes. As the second headline, we do have the Tether dominance that again increased to 70% of the entire stablecoin market, with a total supply of close to 120 billion US dollars, and some people getting pretty concerned about that, even comparing it to the FTX situation. Want to get into that discussion and see if this is a reasonable take or not. And last but not least, discuss the successful relaunch, if we want to call it like that, of Dookey Dash Unclogged and how they've been climbing in the App Store charts. in terms of some notable sales, we have a collection that I very much like to see every now and again. It is the rare Pepes. It is the Series 1 card one, the Nakamoto, that sold for 30 ETH. I'm sharing this on screen as a reminder. We have an Admiral Bored Ape that sold for 18.5 ETH, so well above floor. And we have a Clown Nose CryptoPunk that sold for close to 40 ETH. Moving on to our marketplace partner Mintify to take a more general look at the rest of the JPEG market. It's a bit of an interesting day. We have apes being up 2% at an 11.9 ETH floor, basically only down 2% over the last 7 days, so pretty much unchanged. Pudgies are the same, up 1.5% at a 10.75 ETH floor, absolutely unchanged over the last 7 days, same floor as 7 days ago. Azukis are at a 5.65 ETH floor, unchanged from yesterday, still up 5% over the week, maintaining the recent price action, the recent price pump that they have seen. We have Milady's down 1.4%, down 2% over the last 7 days, sitting at a 3.26 ETH floor. We have the Cambria Founders NFTs that we touched on, I think, yesterday when they minted. They're up another 17%, sitting at a 0.34 ETH floor. And we have another gaming asset that also did pretty well. It is Pirate Nation, the Founders Pirates. They are up 23% over the last 24 hours. And that is on an announcement of a massive update that basically allows players to mint Gen 1 pirates using gems as a sink. That also makes sure that founder pirates are earning 150k booty points per day, up from the previous 50k. So that's a 3x on that. And also that each founders pirate is receiving a lump sum of 25 million booty points. So definitely quite some positive news coming from Pirate Nation, sending the price a bit higher. With that update out of the way, going to you first, Funky, is there anything in the market, whether that's the JPEG market or the more general market, that's catching your attention at the moment?
Just honestly, the Solana rip has really kind of caught me off guard. I was, I mean, it had kind of bounced around that 130 region. And I'm not a TA guy. I'm not a trader. I do like Eric Crown a lot. And he was talking about this being a possibility because it's been showing such strength against Bitcoin. Whereas comparatively, ETH obviously has been lagging behind, not trying to like push your buttons or anything, but like the Solana rip just in the last day has been just wow. And I'm sure we're going to get into it because you mentioned the headlines with the meme coins and everything else, but it's been quite impressive, the strength that it's shown.
Yeah, absolutely. Kodama, any thoughts on that from your side?
No, to be honest, I think it was like not to be anticipated, but I feel like I see a pattern now that when the market recovers, you always have like obviously always Bitcoin leading the whole market with the least gains, followed by ETH, and then followed by Solana, so that you always have like, as we're used to, usually ETH outperforming BTC slightly, and now Solana is being, let's say, one of the three major currencies everybody's focusing on, slightly outperforming Ethereum. And I don't know. I always try to look for patterns, and I think there is definitely something you could keep an eye on. And yeah, this is just my observation, but and especially also with the whole focus on memes, I think it's always obvious that memes recover the most of the time. I think there was also a big whiff pump. It's slightly, like also whiff is pumping again, and a lot of other memes. And so it's just natural for me that Solana is, let's say, the main meme chain at the moment, is also always a strong contender for the biggest comeback in, let's say, the top 10.
When you're saying you're observing these patterns in how basically prices are fluctuating and changing, is it something you're trading actively, or have you just shifted your portfolio to be more in Solana, or how are you positioning yourself at the moment?
To be honest, I'm just observing. I rather not, like, the more you're in crypto, the more you realize that you're actually a really bad trader, or most people are. So I just observe, and I'm pretty confident on how my portfolio is looking at the moment. So I'm not really shifting any positions. I have my BTC, Solana, and ETH bag, and I'm just fine about how it is at the moment. So I'm not acting on my observations. I'm just, we're all addicts. So even if I don't trade, I'm in the market every day. And right now, just more of as a semi-active passenger.
Fair enough, yeah. But where you are not a semi-active passenger, but you are in the driver's seat, no pun intended on that, is your successful ApeDAO proposal or the ApecoinDAO proposal. I'm going to set this up for you and gonna go to some questions on that. So initially, what has happened is that you had a submitted AIP 459 with the initial idea to have a car. I think it was a Porsche initially, for 3 years that is ApeCoin branded, that you will be driving around, showing at events, creating content around that, and that at the end of the period, the car will be sold off by the DAO, with the purchases going back to the ApecoinDAO. And in case that this is not possible, I think a charitable donation was proposed instead. It was looking very, very good for your proposal until literally last minute. Dormant wallet woke up, voted against that, and the proposal failed. You did resubmit that, and it passed a bit more than a day ago. A couple of changes to the proposal were made, especially in light of Yuga Labs' partnership with BMW. Car was changed from a Porsche to a BMW. In terms of the proposed costs of that, it was a total of 210K US dollars, 170K thereof proposed for the car, with an example being a BMW M4 competition, 20K for insurance for 3 years, another 20K for maintenance. This time the proposal did pass, caused a fair bit of discussion on the timeline. I've also seen that Captain with Coffee, both Captain and Steve have been discussing that on their show yesterday, who are with us in the audience today, with some people being massively in support of that proposal, some people being a bit critical if that really has the marketing value for Yuga, and if those 210K basically, minus obviously the residual value of the car that will be sold off and goes back to the DAO, but still if the costs that will incur over the 3 years are worth the marketing effort. But before we go into the discussion, maybe Kodama, going straight to you, what was your initial idea when you came up with that proposal? How did that come to be? What's the origin story behind it?
Sure. So the origin story is basically maybe 1.5 years ago, I started getting involved heavily in the DAO, starting megacodos.eth, still one of the largest community delegations to date with 1.3 million votes. And we have always been pretty active, and we also contributed our fair share to saving the DAO some funds by, for example, me exposing some AIPs asking $1 million for 3 Asian events in sponsoring, where all big wallets were voting in favor. And then I exposed it. It went viral. Next day, all of them changed to no. And I thought, okay, there are, for example, ApecoinDAO sponsored NFC Lisbon for 150K, which is okayish, I would say. It was a pretty cool event, and the activations were nice. Now at Token 24, there is a sponsorship happening for like a conference sponsorship, music festival sponsorship for 475K, only voted through by 3 big voters, and so on and so forth. And so I said, okay, fuck it, I will come up with some crazy marketing idea myself, and see if people in the DAO are fond of it. I gathered where not obviously all of them, but I knew from the start, if I introduce an ambassadorship KOL activation like this, it will polarize, and that was the intention. So I like it. Let's say I just asked for a monthly fee as a KOL. The community knows me, likes me. They support people from within. If it's a fair ask that is, being requested from the DAO, I'm pretty sure I would have easily gone that through. And now nobody would care. You wouldn't have invited me to the spaces. Captain and Steve wouldn't have talked about it yesterday. NFT Stats wouldn't have had reposted it, so on and so forth. So this is just something crazy and bold on steroids. Like, we have so many ambassadorships being closed on a weekly, monthly basis in our space. And I thought, let's try out something new that will obviously stir up a discussion, and some people will call it stupid and a grift and whatever, but most people do not read between the lines and do not study the proposal. Most people that really say, yeah, Kodama is getting a free car, the DAO just lost 210K, do not read the full AIP. As you said, all funds will return, and people also now claiming, oh no, the DAO will never be able to take back the funds. I mean, have a little faith. If the DAO cannot figure out how to take back funds within 3 years, then I don't know, then their lawyers are apes. Maybe they really have apes as lawyers, could be, but even apes probably would figure out in 3 years how to do that from a legal point of view. So, and also all unused funds will be returned. So in the end, I mean, I think I already now took away some of your questions, because this is not just the origin story, but also already addressing some feedback. But in the end, I'm super excited. I know it's not something common. That's what I wanted it to be. And a lot of people are reaching out. I might or maybe not be in contact with BMW soon as well, to be the community arm of their Yuga Labs partnership and so on and so forth. So there is much more planned than just one post a week and me driving to 2 events a year. But now giving the mic back to you, and let's make this a discussion and not just a monologue of me.
Absolutely. Appreciate the origin story and some of the feedback that you already addressed. Maybe before we get into that, just to keep things in order, now that the proposal passed, for those not familiar with how DAOs work, what are the next steps? Like, do you have to basically submit the plan of what car and how that is to be purchased? What are practically the next things that will be happening on that?
So the next step is that I already started yesterday, is reaching out to the administrative team of the DAO, who is handling KYC and everything, and the contractual part of the agreement. So I sent them all my legal information, KYC details yesterday. They will process it, send me a draft agreement. I will review it, sign it. Then I have to confirm ownership of a specific wallet where I will receive the funds. Then I have to cash out these funds. Let's hope it will work easily with Binance and N26 and no AML bells ring, and I have to explain them that I received a grant of a DAO. Let's see. Then currently I'm already in talks with 2 dealers regarding the car. Starting to prepare on that front as well. And yeah, then these are the next steps, basically. Doing the legal stuff with the DAO, cashing out, doing the legal stuff in the real world, buying the car, then registering a custom license plate. In the meantime, talking with community members like Ryder, and 2 others reached out already for potential custom foiling ideas and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is the process now. So unfortunately, it's impossible to make it to ApeFest in 3.5 weeks. This will not work out, unfortunately, but it is what it is. With the resubmission, like with the delays that came because of the first proposal did not pass, this is the price I and the community we have to pay. And yeah, that's it, actually.
My bet is, because you said you're praying that the AML bells won't ring at N26, the German neobank, for those not familiar with it. They will certainly ring if you want to cash out more than 210K or 210K in, well, that's around 190K euros, something like that, on a bank account. And probably that process alone will take you a couple of weeks to sort through.
Let's see. YOLO.
Let's see. Anyhow,
learning by doing.
Anyhow, let's see. Let's hope that goes somewhat fast and smoothly for you. You have addressed some of the concerns and criticisms around that, and we touched a bit on that. You said there's more planned than just doing a post a week. I think this is how some people have looked at it and saying, if you break this down as a 3-year deal, that's basically what they're paying you for a post per week. I think Steve on his show yesterday was making the point that he's a bit more skeptical when it comes to basically non-digital out-of-house marketing, aka having a car foil that is being driven around. Can you speak to some of the things that in your mind that you have planned to do? Obviously, you don't know all the things that you will do over the next 3 years, but do you already have some ideas how you want to put that car into use and like get maximum awareness to it?
Sure. But first of all, again, like the car is like everybody's focusing on the car, which is actually also what I wanted. But in the end, it's also about me creating content over 3 years and being active in the community. So the car is there and will be utilized, but the car is like, it looks like it's the main thing, but in the end, it's just not a means of payment, but it's you know what I mean. It's a compensation also for the work that is being done, because this is like not, as I said, a run-of-the-mill KOL partnership with just monthly payments. As you said, breaking it down to around 2 to 2.5K a month, which is in Web3 terms pretty common, maybe even considered cheap. I mean, if you go to Whale, I mean, obviously I'm not as close to Whale, but you know what I'm talking about. So in the end,
I think we lost you for a moment.
Yeah, but I'm back now, I think.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. Content creation obviously will be a lot more. 2 people immediately reached out to me if they can do a road trip with me from Vienna to Paris or to Lisbon, and doing like some sort of documentary and like a vlog style experience of the Apemobile going from Vienna with different stations to Lisbon next year for NFC, meeting different community members. We will, of course, organize a local meetup here. Grateful Ape reached out to me. They're doing an NFT wall in Prague. I will drive to Prague. We will do some funny shit over there with Czech Apes. Grateful show. We will most likely host the spaces together as well. So there are countless of opportunities to put this car to work, and you will drive it when I'm on holiday if you buy an Ape, obviously. And I will meet Crypto Frosties. I will meet other people from the community. It will be. It's not just my car that I drive around to the supermarket. It's more or less something that I want to share as actively as possible with the community and create content along the way and just have a good time. And the BMW headquarters is a 5-hour drive. We speak the same language. So in my opinion, it's a no-brainer for them to say, okay, wow, someone from the community actually got in this crazy thing called ApecoinDAO, an Apemobile, which is a BMW. We have a partnership with Yuga. Let's do some funny shit together. So I think chances of this happening are pretty high as well. And, then we will see what the future holds. But this is already quite a lot for the first year. And as you said, it's Web3. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the next, like in 12 months from now. But I think I got a good plan, and a lot of fun content opportunities will come up from this.
Gotcha. Funky, I know you have a question on that, so I'll let you chime in on that.
I don't have a question per se, more so I have 3 specific observations just revolving around the conversation. First and foremost, as most people know, I'm very heavily involved in the Polkadot ecosystem, and so very familiar with these kinds of DAO mechanics, voting on chain, doing things that will actually allow spending from a treasury and so on and so forth. So, I know that people want to be critical of this, and you're going to find, and you probably already have, Kadama, that people will be uber critical of any kind of move you make when it comes to spending DAO treasury funds. But I think, for being a long-term minded person, what I find particularly exhilarating about all this is this constant evolution of what will one day become sort of the network state, where we have online digital participants who can use their tokens to enact governance referenda that in this case paid for this partnership. I mean, that's just first and foremost. I think the other thing too that I really wanted to chime in on is that the critique of the fact that it's a car that's going to be just out in the real world and it has no connection to the digital one, very much akin to something that we did in Polkadot. You guys, if you're ever in Germany, you might have seen Polkadot wrapped taxis, because that was one of the things that we did with our DAO, where we have now driving around, especially I think in Berlin, a lot of taxis that have the Polkadot branding wrapped right onto the car itself. So it is effective, because then all of a sudden people just start taking notice, they're taking pictures, they're posting it online. And of course, that's with like these taxis that are mostly Toyota Priuses. I mean, can you imagine when you have a fly ride like an M4, with the stuff on the side, and people are taking pictures and it could be shared in the community and so on and so forth. And I guess my third observation is more personal for you, Kadama, just as an aside, because this is the first time I've ever seen you. I can't believe how much you look like your PFP. If you like just undid your hair and mussed it up a little bit and put on some Ray-Ban Wayfarers, like you are your PFP, which is awesome that you are your CryptoPunk. But yeah, this is a great conversation. And I just really think that people should appreciate more of where this is trending rather than focusing too much on right now. And I think that's just a problem with our space, right? Like everybody's so hyper focused on what's happening in the moment and is very short-term minded, but this could have massive ramifications considering this is something that's going to last a few years. And I say kudos to you for taking the initiative to enact something like this. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Funky, for sharing your observations on that. I think what's also interesting, maybe extrapolating away from that specific proposal is the political nature of DAOs and how that works. But that's something that we've been discussing on the show on and off, and we could probably be discussing for the entire show. But unfortunately, we do have some other headlines to get into. And I think that I would quite like to move on into the first piece of news, into the first main headline. We'll bring up an article from CoinDesk on the screen that is to do with the BTC pump to almost 64K and the move in the market per se. And as we said, in the Asian morning hours, BTC briefly had crossed 64K. Looking at some other macroeconomic data, the 10-year Treasury spread, which is an indicator of recession, has inverted since July 2022, apologies, but has recently steepened to 8 bips, which is a more optimistic statement, to put it in an easy way, and kind of signifies a shift more towards risk on assets. We have also data coming out from CoinGlass saying that we see a nearly $5 billion jump in Bitcoin bets in terms of open interest since Tuesday. So that, again, being a sign of new money rapidly entering the market and betting on basically upcoming volatility. And again, it was a more significant move for ETH with 5%, even more significant for Solana with the move to $150. Tyler also has pointed out yesterday that was, mind you, when Solana was quote unquote only at $143. But also a lot of the Solana memes had jumped back then between 20 and 40%. From Popcat back then being up 33% over the last 24 hours. To many more in the market going up. So it is quite interesting because we had the discussion yesterday on the Fed cutting the rates by 50 bips. And Funky, this is why I want to go straight to you. You brought up the article that was an interview with Arthur Hayes, who was very, very strongly saying that he thinks if the Fed cuts by 50 bips, that's a very nuclear sign for the market that's tanking the market. He was very bearish on that. A day later, we have that open interest shooting up. We have the positive signal from Bank of Japan that they're basically not changing the interest rates. They're keeping them at 25 pips, which basically is lowering the risk for the yen trade to unwind even further and cause some more potential liquidation. So what is going on in the market in your opinion? We do have like a bit of contrasting signals coming from all over the place. What do you think is the main narrative that we need to focus on?
I mean, I think the first thing is that we have to understand when the Fed cuts rates, the knock-on effects are typically pushed out into the future. This isn't something that's going to immediately happen. We already knew it's kind of priced in some sense. I think that the market was anticipating this steeper cut. And then even Crypto Hayes himself, Arthur, posted something yesterday where, and in that longer CoinDesk article, he did reference the JPY, USD trade is the thing to watch. And that was going to dictate. So like, I think yesterday at some point, he had a very short, simple tweet on the timeline that said something, JPY is what to watch now. If it remains weak, BTC is strong. If it gets, if it goes strong, BTC is going to be weak. I still think, and I was talking about this on a space last night, that typically when you see these kinds of cuts, it is to try and stabilize, economic, I guess, deflation, in the sense that when you look at the lower income families here in the United States as a proxy, Dollar Store, Dollar Tree, all these places for low income families to shop, their earnings have been just bad. They're not earning a lot of money. I think there's a lot of signs systemically that the economy is weak. I think this is something done to kind of placate sort of the election cycle as well, because they want to just kind of keep things steady as she goes, if you will, going into election season. This doesn't mean we won't still have sort of our traditional bull run. I think that the next 6-12 months probably aren't going to be impacted. You're going to see, but at the end of the day, we never hit the putting aside the fact that the metric of 2% target inflation is a bunch of BS. We didn't even get there. And the fact that they're cutting rates before we even get to the place that they've been signaling for 2 years about, oh, we need to get back to 2% before we can do anything, just demonstrates, I think, what Arthur Hayes was making the argument for in regard to, we're not really there. So why are they cutting rates at this point? And that's maybe why the argument for 25 bips was probably more optimal versus 50. But I just think at the base layer of the U.S. economy in particular, which is the largest global market capital market in the world, there's still signs of struggle. And I think that these things are going to lead to something bad long-term down the road. But, we've often talked about the phrase, the wall of worry. And I think that we're going to continue to climb the wall of worry in equities and every risk on asset, because at the end of the day, cutting rates and introducing additional liquidity is only going to pump those things. And it's ultimately about the rich getting richer, and hopefully, again, not financial advice, but all of our bags will do quite well in the next year or so. But, at the end of the day, we also have to be mindful that any of this could come crashing down at any point. We've seen some significant drawdowns in the markets in the past, and I think that this could still happen.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Funky, for that detailed perspective. Just bringing up the post by Arthur Hayes that you referenced. Arthur was saying the Fed cut. Now all eyes are on the Bank of Japan, the BOJ meeting decision due this Friday. Again, we've seen that decision. We've seen that interest rates didn't change. And as you perfectly said, his conclusion on that was, if the yen's weak, BTC is strong. If the yen's strong, BTC is weak. And we kind of have been seeing that play out. If we take a look in basically going into the future, or at least what Polymarket is thinking that the future might be, and we're looking at interest rate cuts for November, currently seeing a 35% chance in terms of the bets that we see another 50 bips decrease. A 25 bips decrease is currently ranging and sitting at 57%. There's 3%, that's 364K betting on a 75 bips decrease, which I cannot imagine that this will come to happen. And 7%, 750K out of the total betting volume of 2.4 mil, betting that there's no change happening in November when it comes to the interest rates. I think it will be a very volatile end of the year, especially if we go into the post-election season. We have potentially another interest rate cut. And I think we historically have seen that in election years, most of the stock market rally typically tends to happen in November to December. So will be very, very interesting to watch. Funky, just want to go to you to see if you have any final thoughts on that before we touch into, before we go to the next piece of news.
Yeah, I think JP said yesterday or the other day on the FOMC meeting that, the two more cuts potentially coming, they're on the table, if you will. Depending on how this plays out and what the next weeks look like, I wouldn't be surprised to see them do 25 bips at both of these, just to bring it down a full percent, and then going into 2025 kind of ripping. That's the best case scenario, I think.
Absolutely. Love to hear that. With that being said, let's get into the second piece of news that is still very heavily connected to finance, but has a bit more of a bearish, a bit more of a concerned outlook. And it is to do with this article on Cointelegraph that titles Tether's transparency and business structure raises $100 billion FTX-like concerns. Before we get into the article, quickly sharing the stat from DeFi Llama to look at the total stablecoins market cap, which is reported at $171 billion US dollars. Tether being the biggest player in there, obviously with 120 billion out of those 170 bill, which constitutes the USDT dominance, the Tether dominance of 70%. Next biggest player being USDC with 35 bill, followed by DAI with 5 bill. Then First Digital USD, 2.6 bill, Ethena, 2.6 bill, and very interesting to see PayPal USD, PYUSD climbing to 730 mil. On that note, PYUSD also recently said that they just don't see ETH as the main settlement layer for the transactions because they can't handle the transactions per second, the TPS that they need. They will definitely be focusing more on Solana. However, with the side note done, let's get into this article on Cointelegraph. And we basically have a statement by Cyber Capital founder Justin Bonds, who is sharing his concerns about Tether, his words, not mine, potentially being a bigger scam than FTX, saying that on an X post, Tether is one of the biggest existential threats to crypto as a whole, as we have to trust that they hold $180 billion in collateral without proof. Apologies. Even after the CFTC fined Tether for lying about the reserves in 2021. Again, that is a quote from the Cyber Capital founder Bonds, and basically comparing that to potentially the same kind of market collapse that we've seen coming from FTX collapsing. The article also makes the important point that for those who don't remember, in May 2022, Tether did honor 16.7 billion worth of USDT withdrawals within 10 days without any issues. In contrast to that, Washington Mutual Bank could not honor their 16.5 billion worth of withdrawals within 10 days, which led to what became known as the biggest banking failure in the US in September 2008. It was back in the financial crisis. So the counterpoint basically to that is that Tether has historically shown that they managed to do the withdrawals very well. And again, the criticism coming from Bonds is again also to do with the lack of auditing that he sees, making the point that the 2021 auditors report that was released in partnership with BDO is not a formal audit at all. So basically, for that reason, he can't really trust that. I'm gonna take a break there because it's a bit of a longer setup. And Funky, I see you shaking your head on that, so wanna go straight to you to hear your thoughts on this article.
I just immediately distrust Bonds' take because he uses exclamation marks like he's a fifth grader. I mean, like, you don't need to punctuate every sentence like that. That's a bit ridiculous, you know. So that aside, and I just posted it in our internal chat if you wanted to show this. Willy Woo had a great take on this whole thing because he does a comparison for Blackrock versus Tether. And then he has two quick little insights under there. And he talks about how the fact that Tether sees themselves as a tech company, not necessarily even a finance company. And so the fact that they're continuing to acquire Bitcoin as a backstop, and they're doing all these other things like the gold reserve Tether that's since debuted and everything else, I think the FUD issue that has continued to kind of harangue and be at every step of Tether's journey is a bit overblown at this point. It's almost 2025. I mean, clearly the company is successful. They're allowing withdrawals to happen. I mean, I wonder how long this is always going to hang over their heads, but it's unfortunate that we have people like Bonds in the industry who are still constantly FUDding this point. And yes, I understand that it's a systemic risk, right? But that's crypto, right? It's an incredibly volatile, incredibly, new asset in the grand scheme of things. And so anything could happen, sure. But I mean, at the end of the day, to kind of make these claims and to stir this pot again, it really makes me wonder why he would do such a thing and who's maybe prompting him to do so, because he has a large, important voice in the industry.
That's definitely a way to get attention. Very, very fair take on that. I'm going to get into a tweet in a second. Before we do that, just Stefano from the YouTube comments is asking, what is your stablecoin of choice, fam? Kodama, what stablecoin are you mainly using when you're using stables? And want to hear the same from you, Funky.
Well, a couple of years ago, I was also super afraid of Tether. I think Tether FUD it comes like the amen in every prayer, some point in every cycle. So it was long overdue that we get a little Tether FUD again. But as Funky said, they are so big. Tether. Everybody wants to work at Tether. They are the most profitable. It's insane. I mean, I can't really grasp how fucking crazy Tether is and how much money they're making with basically the simplest service in crypto. So my stablecoin of choice at the moment is Tether because most liquidity, best trading pairs. But if like for trading Tether, for keeping stables in stables, I do like 50-50 Tether USDC to diversify my risk slightly. But I mean, my fear of the huge Black Swan Tether event is somehow vanished because I don't know. I mean, SEC, every regulator is on their back. I mean, so they must be doing something right. They must be compliant to at least an extent that allows them to operate a 118 billion managing company. I mean, they say technology company. I say they're asset managers to some extent because their business model is yield from managing USD deposits from clients. So yeah, I don't know. Binance was the other Black Swan event. They paid 4 billion. So I think we're good now on the FAT side, actually. And yeah, I mean, but long answer to a short question: USDT for trading.
Fair enough. Funky, what about yourself?
Admittedly, I'm still a bit of a USDC guy, and I think that has to do with a lot of different reasons. One, as a coin lover, I onboard cash through Coinbase, and I just and they have an option when you're depositing USD to actually deposit it immediately as USDC. Right now, it's currently earning 5.2%. So I just kind of keep some of our long-term savings in stables to earn a better return than I would from our credit union. Plus, then I also have stables there ready to deploy if there's some big dip as we're starting to get into kind of that frothy market, knowing that it's just going to bounce hard and you can get some profits and so on and so forth. But I'm not afraid to trade with Tether. I use it. There are certain exchanges that I have to go to that USDC is not even a trading pair, and Tether is the dominant pair, and it kind of always has been. So, admittedly, I think I have a little bit of Tether right now, but to Kadam's point, like, I'm not worried about it anymore. I don't ever, like, if you had asked me back in the last run in 2021, I would have been like, there's no way I'm holding Tether. Like, I would trade it and get out of it and want to hold USDC instead, despite all the centralization risks around Circle being able to freeze your coins and so on and so forth. But like I said on a previous show, don't be a terrorist, right? Like, don't be someone who is going to attract that kind of potential where they could freeze your accounts. And at the end of the day, I still stand by the comments that I think a lot of this Tether FUD is just xenophobic in nature, right? Like, Tether comes out of East Asia, and it's just a thing where USDC is the West, and Tether is kind of seen as the East, and we have this kind of geographic separation between the two stable coins. But you can't ignore its dominance. You can't ignore what it's been able to produce with such a small amount of people. And the fact that as a Bitcoiner, that they're acquiring Bitcoin to kind of backstop a lot of their printing, I'm fine with that at the end of the day.
Yeah, very, very, very good points. And one of the things that is annoying me most is when people go on that route to say, it's because of freezing assets. I'm in this or I'm in that stable coin. I think we've seen it with both that Circle can do it and that Tether did it. We had that transparency report, which was an official report by Tether, also showing that. So when it comes to my own stable coins, I'm split between USDC and Tether. And when it comes for my reserves, basically, and when it comes to actively trading, I'm going to be honest and say my capital is very mercenary, and it just goes wherever I think there is an interesting yield to be had. And for the last couple of months, or not the last couple of months, for the start of the year, the first half of the year, that was blast with USDB that had a nice yield in there. And for the reserves, very happy to split that between Tether and USDC. On the post that you shared, maybe as a concluding point on that topic, it was the post that you mentioned, Funky by Willy Woo, saying that BlackRock, again, 20K employees, assets under management of 10.4 trillion, which is 10% of the world's GDP, which is an unimaginably high number. 5.5 billion profit. Tether, approximately 50 employees. Recently read they had about 100 employees. However, with 100 billion in assets under management, 0.1% of the world GDP, they're making more profit, 6.2 billion in profit. And again, the point that you made, that they are considering themselves a technology company first. Look, guys, we only have 10 minutes left in the show. So what I want to do is I want to go to the Web3 Roundup to bring you the news from the rest of the space before we go into our last headline for the day, before we go into the Dookey Dash relaunch. So from the Web3 Roundup, again, we don't have the snapshot pinned to the spaces, so I'm sharing everything on screen. We have the Floor app that has recently rebranded to Rally, and also making the interesting statement that while everyone is focusing on onboarding the next million users, they themselves are focusing on the already existing users in Web3. We have BingX, the Singapore-based exchange that suffered a hack, which initially was constituted to be a minor hack, as they referenced it, but has already surpassed 52 million in assets that allegedly are affected by that hack. We have a fantasy top adding 7 new heroes, Whale and GG being 2 of those heroes added to the most recent lineup. We have, as the next piece of news, a Satoshi era wallet waking up after 15 years of dormancy and moving 60 million in Bitcoin around. That's always interesting to see those old whale wallets waking up. We have Societe Generale, SocGen, their crypto unit taking a Euro stablecoin to Solana after they flopped on Ethereum, which kind of connected to what we initially said about PYUSD, the stablecoin from PayPal. They're also having a strong preference for Solana at the moment, so that's definitely interesting to see. And last but not least, we have the sale of the Doodles Rubik's Cube packs concluding today, with the opening starting later today. And I am planning to do a live stream on that, probably on Monday. We'll post the details on that. We're going to rip, with a couple other creators, going to rip some packs on that. With the Web3 Roundup out of the way, let's get into the last main headline for the day. Again, Dookey Dash Unclogged is live. Bored Ape Yacht Club, on their official account, I'm sharing this post on screen, had a post explaining what's going on. There's golden plungers in the game. They're tradable NFTs. They are the season. They are the ticket to the season tournament. That is the tournament that we reported on, that will have a $1 million prize pool. There's 2 ways to get a golden plunger. You can either rank in the top 250 of the season leaderboard by the end of the season, or you can be lucky and, in what is already Web3 tradition, spin a wheel and win a prize. Spin the wheel of the Dookey in this case and win one of the golden plungers to also qualify. In order to spin this wheel, you require Dookey points. You can get them by basically opening character, vehicle, banner boxes, which all of them are achievable via weekly events that will be offered in the game. And we also had Tenacious sharing this post a couple of hours ago, that on the iOS App Store, on his localized version, Dookey Dash is already ranking on number 9. We had multiple people on X sharing screenshots that it has surpassed Candy Crush, that it's obviously getting a very, very good amount of traction, very solid download numbers from the get-go. And I think Garga also had a post commenting that it actually went live on the App Store before the season started. So that was a bit earlier than expected. So some people did not have access to the season content. In case you are affected by that, I think Garga said all you have to do is to close the app and restart it, and then you are gonna be fine. Kodama, I want to go straight to you. Did you play the first edition of Dookey Dash? Will you play Unclogged? What are your thoughts on Yuga Labs focusing on bringing back Dookey Dash and garnering definitely some attention with that 1 million tournament as well?
I'm a big fan of Dookey Dash. It was a fun and simple game, and sometimes you have to ship easy things, and we have seen the struggle with other side, where you have a vision that is beyond imaginable for like a lot of people. And Dookey Dash, it's simple, mobile, you can play it, age, it doesn't really matter. We see it trending on all the App Store and Android stores, which is amazing. I think there is a hype for consumer crypto, where we, sneak in NFTs and our branding into experiences that, are necessarily not very different from all the other regular experiences people have when playing other mobile games. It's also going straight into the gaming narrative, which I'm a huge fan of, as you know. So I'm excited. I have downloaded it yesterday, and my goal is to start playing on the toilet today, like in the good old. And besides that, yeah, I hope and I think everybody should cheer for Yuga that this becomes a huge success, because in the end, we're all winning together. We're all sitting in the same boat. So, yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic on this one and excited. And like a 1 million tournament is crazy. And we have a lot of old Fortnite guys like Orangey and people from FaZe Clan and so on and so forth, and they will geek the shit out of it. And Mongrel or Moongrel, the guy that won the Golden Key, he will be back for sure. So I think this can make some waves.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The thing that I like is that they went for the gamble element on the golden plungers, for the main reason that the last time Dookey Dash, not because I'm a gambler, the last time Dookey Dash came out, I had a pro gamer play for me to basically level up or farm my sewer passes, make sure that they get a good ranking. And this time, obviously, with the tournament being that competitive, there's like no chance that I would ever be able to win that. But having at least the option to win some of the tickets, which then will be used to access the tournament, and that I also could sell those tickets potentially, I think make it also more interesting for the casual player to, just play that beyond just playing a game for the sake of the game, which never really has been a Web3 thing. There's always an incentive. And it's nice that it includes both very competitive pro players, but also the more casual ones.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I mean, this was a huge learning after the first version, because who had have guessed that Rent the Pro Gamer will become such a crazy thing for sewer passes? This is like, people criticize Yuga for some stuff, but what you're gonna do when you're just trying out shit and you're like world's first is maybe a bit exaggerated, but you know where I'm coming from. So yeah, I fully agree. I think they took a lot of feedback and implemented it well, and that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's always something I liked about our space, is that whenever there's like an opportunity, people will form a business model around that. Like the last time around, you had Discord servers with pro gamers, you had gaming managers who were connecting gamers with players who wanted to have their sewer passes played. So I do like that business-minded nature of our space. Even when it comes to a game, someone will find a way to build a little business out of that runs for a couple of months and will print them a good amount of money. Funky, I want to go to you to check in with you, see what your thoughts are on the game relaunch.
Well, I was actually trying to actively look in the App Store. I'm not a good App Store user. I literally just go on for a specific app. I couldn't even find the ranking because I was curious to see where it was in the States. But more importantly than that, I'm just a fan of anything that's going to advance the space. To some of the points that you guys just made in terms of like playing without necessarily having some kind of incentive and so on and so forth. And I think it really is a nice bow tie to the beginning of the conversation, because now we have something that is in the digital space that is focused on the Bored Ape Yacht Club brand. And then we have Kodama at the beginning of the space talking about the car and the thing that he just passed with the ApecoinDAO. So, I mean, to see that we're bringing sort of that still the digital utility and advancing the Web3 ethos among people who are just native gamers, which we know is a massive, massive, massive vertical. It's bigger than movies, music, everything combined. I really think that this is going to be, I'm a big fan of Elio Trades, been watching him for a long time. He is convinced that gaming is going to be the Trojan horse that gets everybody from Web 2 into Web 3. And things like this is exactly how we do that. And then coupled with what Kodama is doing out in the real world and flexing an awesome BMW, I mean, doesn't get any better than that. So I wish I had an ape, admittedly, at this point, but unfortunately I don't. But kudos to everything that Yuga's doing at this point.
There we go. We see the marketing is working, and I think those are good concluding words for the show today and for the week. Thank you very much to both of you, Funky and Kodama, for stepping up and co-hosting the show with me. Also, thank you, Gundama, for sharing your story on your sports car proposal in the ApecoinDAO. Thank you to everyone who has joined us in the audience, and also to just Stefano, to Oxy, Whitport, in the YouTube comments being very active as per usual. Really appreciate that. We're going to be back on Monday on 7 a.m. Eastern Time, live on X, live on YouTube, and also posting every episode to Spotify and Apple Music if you prefer to catch us there. That being said, I wish you all a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.